All right, Hodge, you want to start with North Melbourne and their improvement?
Well, it was more sitting back what they've been able to do the last month, Kane, because I think a lot of people went hard at North. Early in the season, they went hard at Clarko. Was he the right person for them? And I think their inconsistency of having him at the club, having such a young list, no senior players to teach him, but it looks like with a little bit of continuity with him being there for the last 12 months, that they're finally starting to work on their game style moving forward. And one of them is coaches. When they coach new teams, they want to, what are we doing first? Is it ball movement? Is it defence? Clearly, he's gone contested possession first, and the ball movement's going to come because since round 12, they're rated third for contested possession, they're third for ground balls, they're third for pressure, they're second for clearance differential. They're number one. They're rated the hardest in the AFL once they get the oppo gets the ball inside forward 50 to score. So this is sort of shows me that the stuff that they've been trying to do for 18 months is it's slowly clicked. But on the flip side, the ball use, they're rated 18 with connection and going inside forward 50. So clearly from my observation, the last 4 or 5, 6 weeks, the defensive side of things really stood out, which is the reason why they've actually started to be in games, and they had their first win for a while on the weekend. But at least there's a part of that they're trying. It's starting to show to the eye, which is pleasing for all the hard work that they've put in.
Yeah, there's no doubt about that, and they needed to get that reward. When you look at it, they still won 2 games for the season, which even I would think is under par. I probably had them at 7 or 8 wins.
7?
At the start.
Did you not watch them last year, Kane?
Yeah, Hodgie, they couldn't have been any worse than last year, and the facts are that they're not that much better this year.
But the list that they put together, they lost Mackay, and then they've put in 2 young draft picks, and you expect them to jump up to 7 wins?
No, they've also had some experienced players come in. Fisher's come in, Dylan Stevens has come in, so they've been pretty cognizant of the fact to get some experienced players.
Fisher couldn't get a game at Carlton last year.
Well, they gave him a 4-year deal, so they must have rated him.
That's because they were desperate.
Well, that's
not going to... If you can't get a game at Carlton, you come across on a 4-year deal. I like what he can do, but he's not going to make him have 7 wins.
Well, I'm just saying, you said they lost a few. They added a few experienced players in, and then they've got the improvement of some youngsters that hadn't played a lot of football. Clearly, Shees was going to be better. Wardlaw's going to be a lot better in his second year. So, I think 6, 7
You're
wins.
Dreaming.
6 or 7 wins. I mean,
dreaming, Kate. You actually called was Clarko the right person 7-10 weeks ago.
And
are you backing off on that at the moment?
No, not Hodgie. They're equal last. Like, they're equal last, and they've got a percentage of 66. So let's not get too carried away.
Kane, if you're wrong, mate, you can say it. Kane, if you're wrong, you can put your hand up and say, maybe I'll win a bit early on this.
With 2 wins.
What they have done, though, is since the bye, as Hodge has pointed out, they've clearly gone to the bye, and I think Clarko said this last week, and said, well, this isn't working, this isn't working, this is working, let's keep on going with that. So there has been a definite shift, and I think Charlie Comben is really much better now and much more understanding of what's required. Tristan Cherry has added some grunt.
They've definitely got some positives come out of them. They found a couple of
That's as good as you're going to get.
Jared, over this little break here before the next hour, can you just tell Kane if he's wrong, he can admit it, okay?
I'll just continue
after 6 o'clock.
I'll continue to
Kane
study
has got an
the ladder, and it still says to me 2 wins. Hodgie's got the boxing gloves on. More with him after this. A lot of text messages coming through off the back of my exchange with Hodgie over North Melbourne. Kane Corns getting exposed for the fraud that he is by Luke Hodge. Kane Corns, a.k.a. the Fonz, can't say he's wrong. Hodge right again. Corns wrong, says Steve. Hodgie to replace Joe Biden, says Ben. Kane, don't you say you said 7 wins. I remember it. You said North would win 10 games, says Darren. Well, that's worse, Darren. If I said 10, that's worse. They've won 2. Kane, the Fonz, Corns. I'm not fully over Happy Days, Jared, but was the Fonz, the Fonz
Kane.
could never say he was
wrong. Well, the
wrong,
Fonz, he almost got there, but as it came out, he went, I was, it just didn't quite come out.
Yes, Hodgie.
Kane,
yes.
I was just soaking in what you were telling me about how wide North were going to jump from 2 wins to 7. Is that what you were saying?
Well, I thought they would win 7 or 8.
And you said because of the experience that they had come in, Dylan Stevens comes in, Zach Fisher.
Yep.
Don't want to run through a few people that they lost and their games that they played. Ben Cunnington, 238. Todd Gonstein, 315. Ben Mackay, 80. Jack Zeeble, 280. Aaron Hall, 160. They lost 1,074 games from last season.
Retirement.
And you're saying that these two kids are going to come across and lift them from 2 games to 7. Come on, Fonzie, say it. Say it, Fonzie. Come on,
No,
we know it's in there.
Hodgie.
It starts with an S.
You are so easily, you clowns and these North Melbourne supporters are so easily
Hey,
pleased.
Kane, do you know when you start abusing
Geez, you're
people,
not-
that means you're wrong. So when you
like-
get aggressive and start potting people, that means internally you know that you're incorrect.
Everyone wins
so
a
just
prize.
say it, mate.
No, you'd be one of those parents that doesn't want a scoreboard at school sport because you're too offended that someone will get
Oi,
offended.
you know me better than that, Kane.
Hodgie,
No point playing if you
you
don't have
are
a winner
the
or a
most
loser.
demanding captain I've ever seen. Imagine if you played in a team that had won 2 wins to round 17. You think you'd be sitting here giving pats on the back? No, you wouldn't. You'd be saying, we expected better. Yep, well done for turning it around. And that's been great. But what a disaster it was to start the year that has led us to this position.
It's a hard way to say you're wrong, Kane.
No,
anyway, what else are we talking about tonight?
Well, you're on the show. You're getting the big bucks. Collingwood, you want to speak about them and why they have dropped off?
Well, clearly and I know every week that we start with Collingwood, we've got to say, yes, there are injuries, and my check with his shoulder, no good. But a couple of things that are concerning is how easy they're letting their opposition find the footy. So on the weekend, Friday night, Essendon had the ball 400 times. They had 139 marks, which is the highest under Fly's coaching, and they had 43 fewest tackles. They had 43 tackles, which is the fewest under Fly. And I sort of went through and had a bit of a look at how often, very rarely you see 400 touches in a game of football against a premiership side, let alone anyone. But teams to give up 400 touches to the opposition this year, West Coast have done it 5 times, Collingwood have done it 4 times, and Richmond have done it 4 times, and St Kilda twice. No other team has done it, has allowed 400 more than once, and there's been 5 or 6 that not at all. So you sort of sit back and go, yes, there's some injuries that no doubt Collingwood have been set back, but the ease that Essendon were able to pass the ball around, pick their way through the zone, that would be one of the first things that I'll be looking at with Flyers. Yes, you got a lot of blokes out, but manning someone up, cutting out the teasing distance, not allowing just an easy little chip kick to be able to move the ball from D50 to forward 50, that's something that's really, I've noticed the last couple of weeks of watching them. It's happened all year for them.
They certainly had the game on their terms, Essendon. They love the uncontested ball and maintaining possession. And after the first 15 minutes of the first quarter, they maintained possession and got challenged. But that was what was so meritorious about their win.
Yeah, Craig McRae says, look, it's not about the players we've got, it's about the system.
To a point.
You both agree with that? They're good. I mean, and he's saying that because he's got to find a way, because he's got to pick the players that he's got available. So you don't want to talk down the players that you've got. But the facts are, if you don't have good players, you don't win.
Well, I think to a large degree you'd agree with him, Hodgie. But there's a tipping point, and when you're tipping out a general and you're putting in a private, generally you're unders.
Yeah, and that's, look, you can 100% understand why he's saying it because anyone who he brings up, he doesn't want to deflate them before they're playing a game thinking, oh, they're not good, we're going to lose this game. So you've got to sort of say it's a system. You lose a soldier, replace him with another soldier. Every coach has had that. Clarko said this 15 years ago to us, so then whoever was stepping up realised that all they had to do was just play a certain role, come in there, don't do anything more than your teammates expect from you. And it comes to a point where their whole forward line. So if you go through Carlton's forward line and you take out all of Carlton's forward line, how good will they be? And that's what Collingwood have done. Collingwood have none of their top 6 forwards playing at the moment. And then you lose Myercheck, who's got back in.
And how
McStay's playing a half for with his shoulder now. And then you got McStay, who's going to play his first half a game for the season in the seconds. You sort of sit back and go, if you take 6 forwards out, your best 6 forwards out of any team, and you're going to struggle. So I can understand why he's saying it, but realistically, you can't replace that many blokes. You can throw in 1 or 2 here or there, and that's why it's always good to blood some young guys. But they've had 9 debutants this year, Collingwood, just on the back of the injuries, and I think a lot of them were forced because a few of them aren't quite ready at AFL level. But they've had to step up because of the injuries that Collingwood have got.
The Collingwood coach, Craig McRae, just left the building. Here he is speaking on the run home this afternoon.
We're going to tidy up. We're not, today was a pretty pointed day. I come here with good energy because I know we're into solution mode, but we had a lot of pretty frank conversations about the team we want to be. And certainly Friday night wasn't that.
But why? Yeah. But what? I don't know. You want to share it? But what's the explanation for it? Is it? I suppose it's a combination of things. Clearly, it wouldn't be any one thing. But is there one thing more important than others?
Well, for us, it's pressure. hope Chris listens to you down the road at the Catterick. I know
Of course
he loves this show.
Of course he does.
G'day, Chris. Just don't call him Brad. He hates that.
That's true.
No, but there's an element to our game that you got to bring pressure. You know, and we're one of the best pressure teams. Differential in the competition. It was their worst pressure game for the year.
So where does that come from?
Well, because they had 130 odd uncontested marks.
139.
So it's hard to tackle when you don't have the ball.
Yep.
And then we sort of moved the ball a bit differently at times. And again, we can control some of that. And then it's the opposition doing some really, really good stuff. The Bombers were really slick with the way they outnumbered us and then maintained possession at times. And then some structural stuff. There's a lot of little things.
Yeah.
But fundamentally, if you want to put a finger at something, that's something that we need to get better
That's
at.
why Hodgie's one of the best analysts in football, Gerard. He wouldn't have heard that audio, but that is exactly what he was suggesting. So when he's not trying to be argumentative, Hodgie, that's the gold that you can bring to this program. You want to move on and speak about their opposition and a young forward from the Bombers caught your eye.
Yeah, well, that's what I mean. I think a lot of the ball movement from Essendon worked into this guy's advantage. And I'm talking about Nate Caddy. And you sort of look back and think, well, He, for a bloke who's coming as his first year, didn't you expect as a key forward that give him a little bit of time, give him 2 or 3 years? And I know when Bud first came in, when Ruff first came in, they looked raw. They were unsure. They were hesitant. They didn't know when to fly. They didn't know if they were jumping into someone else's area. Caddy looks like he's confident. He knows he's good. He knows that he's got ability, and all he has to do. And you talk to the Essendon coaches, all they want him to do is compete.
Yep.
And that is simple, and that's what he does. There's a few times where he was outnumbered, brought it to ground, but the ball movement from Essendon worked to his advantage. They were able to work it up nice and calmly, and then once they got centre forward, they could go. And he realised that once they could go, he was able to get out the back. And his running patterns for a first-year guy were as smooth and as comfortable as I've seen in a long period of time. So if he can work on one main area, which is his goal kicking, it looked like he rushed and got a little bit cramped with his goal kicking, but kicking 1-3, having the 12 touches, it wasn't a high possession game for him, but just the ability and what he did in the air and how he competed, I really liked. And I can't see Essendon not playing him again. They had the option last week against Geelong, which probably would have been a smarter move in the wet with all the tools that they had. But if I was an Essendon coach or a supporter, I'd be wanting to see him in the seniors for the rest of the year.
How far can they go, Hodgie?
They've still. I've talked to a lot of the Essendon supporters because obviously the Hawthorn-Essendon rivalry, I've got to know a few of the guys.
Yeah.
They're still not convinced just yet. Yes, they beat Collingwood. They failed against Geelong. They're still not convinced because Collingwood have so many injuries. So they need to perform. And I reckon Melbourne's going to be a solid side this week for them because Melbourne were back to their best in the first half against the Lions. Viney was in and under. Oliver was really good 2 weeks ago. But yeah, I need to see a little bit more before I'm sold. They're sitting pretty on the ladder, and they'll definitely make finals. I've got them down for finals, but against a top 8 team, a top 4 team, I need to see them do it for 4 quarters.
Unfortunately for Melbourne, the news just coming to hand that Max Gawn looks like he's going to miss a couple.
Yeah, well, they just keep losing important people. You talk about Brayshaw at the time of the year, and I don't think we understood how important Brayshaw was to Melbourne until they needed to throw a few things around. And the bloke who they had played half forward, play in the middle, go to half back for a year, was all of a sudden wasn't there because of his retirement. Petrarch, we know how important, and then Max Gawn has been the best ruckman in the AFL for the last 6 to 8 years, without a doubt. So just at the time that they really need people to step up and put their hand up to go on to play finals, they seem to be losing him.
And your thoughts on the Dockers?
I've seen a massive change since Longmuir had a go at him.
Yeah.
I think it was post round 14 where they got embarrassed, and he was sort of saying they were looking about chasing football and all that, but the stats that they've been able to show up, and they're rated in the top 4, and because of the season is so even with all the sides, they've been able to jump up to 3rd, which is amazing, where the first half of the season where we're sort of sitting here going, they look inconsistent, but since he gave them that little bit of a spray, they're 4th for pressure, they're 3rd for inside 50s, they're doing both defence and offence. They're 4th for points for, 4th for points against, they're 3rd for clearance differential, they're 3rd from scores from turnover differential, so they've got a really good balance of defending, hunting the ball, but also got a good mix scoring-wise from clearance, but also from turnover. And if you talk about clearances, this is one of the best clearance sides that we've seen in a long period of time. If you look through some of the stats, they're plus 127 in clearances this year. Do you know what their second side is and what their number is?
No, that's why we're paying you to do the research.
Would it
48, and that's from Sydney. We were talking about how good Sydney are with the Heeneys, the Warners, and Grundy. They're sitting second on plus 48 for the season.
Yep.
Freo are 127. I think their next phase of their development to continue to grow is don't just get the clearance. How can you break it open and get it forward to be effective from it? But that's huge numbers when you look at Sarong, Brayshaw, blokes that are still young that have got a lot of developing in themselves.
So you've played in brilliant sides, Hodgie, that have dominated home and away seasons. Is this just a blip for Sydney, or is it a significant chink in their armour? I'm of the camp that it's probably not a bad thing to happen to them at this point of the year. Where do you sit?
I'd prefer, and our best season that we had at Hawthorn was 2012. We did not win the grand final because we played our best football from rounds 12 until the second final or till the prelim. Teams were trying to work us out and play different ways, and it took Sydney to grand final day to do it. So I'm looking at Sydney and go, teams have found a weakness against you, and the weakness are uncontested marks. So there's been 4 times this year where Sydney have had over 100 uncontested marks taken against them. And you look at St Kilda, that's their way. Their slow ball movement naturally hurts Sydney. So the 4 times was the Bulldogs when they took 101, and they should have won. The Bulldogs had, 28 scoring shots to 22 and lost the game by 12 points. And then you look at the other 3 games that they lost. Freo had 105 uncontested marks against them. Richmond had 110 uncontested marks against them. And St Kilda had 126 uncontested marks against Sydney. So if you look at the way to beat Sydney, or it showed from this year, is that kick mark, composed, build up behind the ball. So at least that way, if you turn the ball over, you can defend. So if I was Sydney, I'd be rapt that teams found this out about me now, rather than going into your first or second finals and you start to panic. So at least now they can look at, as we just spoke about before, about manning up. Collingwood need to go and squeeze up to shut down those uncontested marks that Essendon did. That's what Sydney need to focus. Squeeze up and just don't give the opposition as much time and space.
Would you pay 3 talls in the Sydney forward line?
Well, if you look at Sydney on the weekend, yes, St Kilda found a way to get to them, but they still should have won. Like the amount of inside 50s they had to St Kilda. St Kilda had 41 inside 50s, but it was St Kilda's accuracy that got them. So I wouldn't be stressing too much on the structure of Sydney at the moment. I'd be tightening up on those uncontested marks because they're still getting a lot of scoring opportunities. They just haven't been effective. They haven't been efficient enough to hit the scoreboard. Because if anyone who was watching the game would have realised that they were well and truly in that game to lose by a couple of points when McDonald had his opportunity to kick. And unfortunately, every kid wants that opportunity to kick a winning goal. He's had it twice in a row, and the poor fella fell short.
I said this morning, but I at least love the fact that he wanted the moment. I reckon he could have probably passed it. Just there was a play, it might have been Papley just to his right, and could have chipped it. Would have been somewhat risky, but he said, nah, straight away. He didn't know how much time was on the clock. Siren could have gone if he had taken that pass. So he took it upon himself to have the shot. Kicked it pretty well, but I thought that was a sign of his character that after last week he was willing to have another crack, Hodgie.
Yeah, I love the mindset. I still would have loved for him to turn around and just see if there was... Because if someone had been spare, he wouldn't have seen him because he took the mark, pointed up and said, I'm going to make up from last week.
Yeah,
so
I just wonder if he was conscious of time,
Yeah,
Like
well, if that's the case, yep.
Yeah, if there was 10 seconds and he's gone to play on and the siren's gone when the ball's in flight, so to not take that risk. Izak Rankine has been suspended for 4 weeks. You didn't like it, clearly, and rightly so.
How do you mean I didn't like the 4 weeks or I didn't like the act?
What it says here is Izak Rankine, should he have got a red card? Is that what you're suggesting?
I was throwing up the red card, and 100% he should have got 3 or 4 weeks. There's no doubt about it. And the story behind the red card for me is, if you look at the game, so Izak Rankine, the commentator said a couple of times, Rankine's been kept to 2 touches by Starcevic. They need him up around the ball. They need him to spark for Adelaide to go well. And I think what we've been so surprised in that Rankine is the barometer for Adelaide, and the game that he did his hamstring, he was the only one who was going to win it against Collingwood. He came back, he kicked 2 goals, had a really good first half, set the game up for him. Starcevic would shut him down, and then all of a sudden, Starcevic is running back, there's a stoppage, and he sees a prime opportunity when Starcevic wasn't watching to drop the shoulder in and drop him. So Starcevic is out of the game because he was doing a really good job. Rankine tried to get him off the ball, and yes, he had a head clash and Rankine went off with blood, but you initiated the contact, you ought to cop what you deserve. So it's 100%, it's a 3 or 4 week game, but this is where I'm sort of leaning on, why isn't that a red card? Brendan Starcevic is out for the game, Brisbane go 1 down, And because of a shot from Rankine, which was not in the play, which was not fair, he was just trying to be physical against Starcevich. And I can understand where he's coming from. I'm not having a go at him with that. But this is where the red card, I think, should be brought into the AFL, because there was not a footy act.
Jared?
It was someone who was trying to be physical and got someone sent off because of it.
Well, I've been a big red card man, as you know, and I'm pleased somebody else brought it up, because it was a classic case where it took a long while to get him off. You could have gone to the video. You could have had a look at it. You could have had 3 people like that, including the umpires. And as Hodge said, he should have been off the ground, because you're one man down. And you can have your arguments about whether he deliberately meant to do it. Of course, he didn't deliberately mean to get 6 stitches in his own head and knock him out by hitting him in the chin. But he dead set meant to hit him down the spine or down the chest, Hodge, and take him as a victim. So if you get it wrong and he's off, he should have been red carded for sure.
And that's the thing, is I can 100% understand where Rankine's coming from, because he'll be getting pushed in that wherever. So if he wants to try and be physical and bump a bloke and let him know that he's not going to stand for it, but that's football. It's the same as when Butters was going back at Jared Berry, and Butters got a fine for giving him a rib tickle. I'm like, well, I actually don't mind the person getting tagged to go back at him, but when you have an attempt to do something and you send the bloke off when it's not in the field of play, it's actually a stop play while there was a stoppage. You've got to get the consequences as well. And this isn't getting a red card will actually even the playing field for Brisbane. Whoever Adelaide play the next 3 or 4 weeks, we're going to get the benefit for something that happened against the Lions. So this is why I'm a big one for acts where you send it down to the arc. You've got someone down there who understands the tribunal and says, is this a football act that we want to see? And should he be sent off because of the act that he did? And I reckon 10 out of 10 people who would have been judging that would have said, yep, off you go. You sit out because you've made Starcevich sit out of the play.
Was Laura Kane asked that this morning?
I think she was asked about Izak Heeney. So let's have a listen to what she said about the Brownlow eligibility.
Well, this is where the Commission needs to get involved and send a message down to the football department. Not your decision. It's our decision.
Yeah, I agree with this.
And we need to address this. Harley Reid missing out because of a tackle gone wrong is ridiculous when you consider Zach Butters has been fined 3 times this year for smacking blokes. Now, not vicious smacks, but certainly punches that would have, in the old day, got a week. And he would have been ineligible 3 times this year. In fact, he would have got a week the first time, 2 weeks the second time. And
is a threshold the right way, do you think, Hodge? Now that people and players are getting suspended for things that they just wouldn't have got suspended for 2 years ago, is a 3-game threshold about right, do you think? Or are you happy with this?
I'll put it down to the intent. And whether it's so, you look at the Heeney thing, and I'm sitting here, and I'll put my hand up. I could be the only one out here who thinks he shouldn't get a week for that. I thought he was in there. He's trying to push off. That happens at every contest. He wasn't trying to hit him in the face. He wasn't trying to be physical and intimidate. He was trying to create space to go on a lead. And as soon as he got him high, he stopped play pretty much and sort of said, "Oh, sorry," and then moved on.
Yeah.
I'm not sure what you guys are thinking about, but I'm sitting there going, that's a fine at best, because it was an act where he got him high, but there was no intent, there was no malice, there was nothing to try and hit him, hurt him. It was just trying to push space, give himself space to lead up at the football.
Well, they changed the rule over the summer period, and I think he might have tried to slap the hands around, and the guy slipped. I'd be staggered if he doesn't get off at the tribunal, which I'm sure he's going to go to. Kane, has that come through yet?
That is, yep. I think Sammy Eben has just reported that Sydney will be challenging that. You have to.
Absolutely, you have to.
You have to do that. And
Adrian Anderson will be on the line, and you'd expect him to get off.
And
2 or 3 others this year.
The one that they sorry, Kane. The one that they tried to bring in, I was under the understanding that it's when you're a long way off and then you try and hit him to be in like the off-ball one where it was accident. I didn't mean to get him high, but I tried to do it to get position or something like that. I thought it was
more
the out-of-play one where they were going to try and change to intentional, not the one where this is in play. This is a bloke who's leading for the football, not standing 50 metres off the ball, just trying to be a macho, hit someone in the chest and get him high.
And Hodgie, we should give the Saints some love for their performance yesterday.
Yeah, well, they figured out a way. There's been stages of football over the last 3 weeks where St Kilda, the football they played against Brisbane Lions to kick 100 points, I thought they were getting in the way where they can move the ball when they get time and space. And then what they were able to do, they were able to pressure Sydney. And we spoke before, Sydney missed a lot of opportunities, but the composure and the intensity that St Kilda they had plus 22 tackles against a Sydney team who we know are very ferocious around the contest. So I'm still thinking that St Kilda need to be better than what we've seen so far, but coming up against the ladder leaders to have that intent, to obviously have a game style that they wanted to to show against Sydney to withstand them the ball. It worked quite well, and I know a lot of Saints supporters were pretty happy.
I'm still looking forward to seeing that game, but I couldn't believe that young Phillipou has come off a 4-week spell, albeit under the guise of the great Lenny Hayes, and he's come onto the ground. He's got 10 coaches' votes. That is a major return to form.
Yeah, well, had the 26, had the 5 clearances, and very rarely, I know they say it afterwards, but he said the 4 or 5 weeks at VFL level was the making of him in this position, where I reckon those 4 or 5 weeks while he was down there, he would have been saying, this is shit, and I don't want to be playing down here. But you sort of look at it now, he comes back in, he's got the confidence, and he's got the understanding of his role that he needs, and he's got a few smart footballers that are teaching him the game as well.
I'm led to believe that Ross spent a heap of work with Mattaes Phillipou. So, I mean, I love it when senior coaches, and I'm a bit biased towards Mark Williams, but get their hands dirty and do that type of stuff. I see Sam Mitchell all the time. People post clips of him working on the Wizard Watson's goal kicking, that type of thing that senior coaches do. And feels like, well, I've heard that Ross has just done exactly that when Phillipou's been out of the side with great rewards. So it's good coaching. I've no issue with making players earn it at the lower level. And we've seen it at Geelong. We've seen it at the Western Bulldogs at times. And this has had good success in just 1 week. A lot of response to Hodgie's red card theory. Hodgie says, Terry, West Australian country football in some leagues has a yellow card and a red card. It's exactly what you're talking about and has been in place for the best part of years, and it works. Hodgie should be on the tribunal panel. Heeney and others that don't pass the pub test for sure. But then this one, you're kidding, Hodgie. Heeney deserves more than 1 week, not less.
This is the best part about it. Is I put my hand up and said I could be the only one who thinks that. But people see it different. People see that he got him in the face. He deserves to be suspended, and I totally understand that. I put myself in Heeney's mindset, going, what was I trying to do? I was trying to create space, push off, and then lead up at the ball. And we see that happen all the time. We see full forwards and full backs that get each other high, but just because there was claret, he got the suspension in my belief. So, look, the best part about football is everyone has their opinion. Everyone can argue over their opinion.
Right.
I'm surprised we haven't heard from you, Kane, about long-term contracts. Aaron Norton with a concussion.
Another one, yeah. I mean, that's going to be the risk. It's going to affect some clubs badly. It didn't look like it wasn't a severe concussion, but just one of those head knocks, unfortunate. And if they start piling up and you've still got 7 or 8 years, then it can be a bit of a concern. One to watch, and the AFL is not going to cover anything past 3 years. We know that.